the funny thing about Wonder Woman is that you cannot divorce it from the context in which it arrives. I mean, this is, as has been widely reported, the first female-led superhero film in 12 years to come out of Hollywood. It is the first superhero film ever to be directed by a woman, and it is the highest budget film ever made by a woman, and it is arriving into the middle of this DC extended universe that is like this quagmire of nihilism and despair. And it is also arriving at a time where other female-led blockbusters, notably the Ghostbusters reboot from a while back, are experiencing this enormous pushback from an audience who are used to, a certain sector of the audience, I should say, who are used to being treated like absolutely the one group of people Hollywood must always make an enormous effort to fall over themselves to appeal to or appease. So you can look at this film as just a bit of fun, which, by the way, it is. It is tremendous fun. But I think there's some serious significance attached to this, which it has never asked for, by the way. You know, this is not a film that kind of comes in saying, we're going to reform Hollywood. You know, we're going to show you how to do female action properly. It is absolutely a proper, thoroughbred comic book film. But there's a lot of interesting stuff sort of hovering around it as well. And what's different about it strikes you straight away. I mean, it's in the way in which Wonder Woman, who's not really referred to as Wonder Woman at all during the film, it's always Diana, or Diana of Themyscira? Themyscira? I think it is, yes. It's Diana of Themyscira. This is this kind of magical island that's concealed from the outside world where only the Amazons live. It's a man-free zone. And the first part of the film, very much like the scenes back on Superman's home planet in some of the Superman films, is of her growing up and learning how to fight. It's the Amazons' mission, basically, to keep Ares, the god of war, in check. Whenever Ares will rise up in the world, it's up to them to swat him back down again. And the arrival of Chris Pine's character, who is this First World War spy, carrying this secret formula the German Empire has developed for a new super strong style of mustard gas. He crash lands near the island, and then Diana feels compelled to go to the outside world, the world of men, as it's very loadedly referred to, and track down wherever Ares has risen up and destroy him from good and destroy him for good and expel the spirit of war from the outside world. But it's in the way in which the camera is looking at her character, looking at the other women as they practice in combat. It is identifying with them rather than objectifying them. And it's just a kind of a very subtle way. You know, the amazing thing about cinema is that it doesn't just tell you what to look at, it tells you how to look at it as well. You can't kind of escape the camera's intentions. And even in these ensemble, like the Avengers films and stuff, there is an element to which actually the Avengers are very equal opportunities about it. You know, they make both their female and male characters into heartthrobs. But in this, it's very, very much, you know, she is the hero of the piece and we're going to identify with her. The camera will get close up into her face, so we are seeing what emotions she's experiencing and we will experience those emotions with her in tandem. When they move over to wartime London, which is where they go before they move out to the Western Front, there are these sort of fish-out-of-water comedy sections. She's getting dressed up in the ladies' fashions of the day and discovering that they're not particularly flexible when it comes to fighting, which is all very funny. But what it's doing is it's loading up this idea that she's, you know, what does she stand for? How does she see other people? You know, how does she relate to humans? What are her aims and everything? So when she gets to battle, and there's this wonderful scene where she, again, the use of man is very, very loaded whenever it comes up in this film. She gets to no man's land, so just past the trenches. Chris Pine's character tells us, you know, no man can make it across there and survive. And of course, that sets up the coming action sequence. And so Diana is running across no man's land, and there is gunfire hailing down from all sides that she's fighting off with her bracers on her wrists and her shield. She's kind of wading through this onslaught. And it is exciting, but it's also moving. And I found myself welling up, not for the first time in a superhero film, but for the first time in a sort of a standalone one. The only other time I think I've come close to crying in a superhero film was during Civil War, and it was because there was so much had been built up about Iron Man, Captain America's friendship over, you know, umpteen films past. So to finally see them, you know, falling out and beating each other up, there was a lot invested in that. It was a big change. So I was moved by that. But in this, you're moved by what the character stands for and by what she's trying to achieve every bit as much as you are by the staging of the action scene, really stirring music, you know, the special effects. It's all kind of working towards making this character a totally plausible hero and someone that you are absolutely on side with. And it's kind of proper filmmaking. It really took me aback. And then later on, you've got this idea of the civilians that she's fighting to protect. The film takes the time to show you their village, and it shows you the little tavern in the middle. There's some music on, there's some dancing going on. It takes the time to flesh that out. You feel the stakes for what she's fighting for. Additionally, she has this great supporting cast around her of various dogs of war, freelance soldiers that are hired by Chris Pine for the trip. I keep calling him Chris Pine. That's not his name. It's Steve Trevor. But, when you have this sort of 4 Chris's active in superhero films at the moment, and it's quite difficult to differentiate between them. So Chris Pine. Chris Pine hires all these people. Ewan Bremner is one of them from Trainspotting, who plays this kind of Scottish sharpshooter who sings Robert Burns at one point in the film. And it's like, this is a film that it's kind of investing in character, be it Diana or be it these people that are around her, in a way that makes this story incredibly vivid and incredibly interesting. I think, eventually it devolves down to the CG finale at the end, which is what the DC films tend to do. For me, it worked here because it's foreshadowed nicely, but, really very, very genuinely impressed with this. And it's almost a shame to think that this character is going to have to somehow slip back into the DC franchise with the Justice League film later on. But, regardless of what happens there, we will always have Themyscira.